So, thank you to all the contributors, and now I fear you have to go up here to answer the questions. Are there questions on your side? Oh, that's a couple. So I think we do it the way that we start here and go over to there. You have to come up here, I fear.
Today, actually, we have...
Today we have, okay, that's good. That's making it more easy.
I may have spoken too quickly. We checked in the morning. Doesn't seem... Oh, excellent.
בסדר.
מי ראשון?
כל בסדר.
יאללה. ללכת משמאל לימין.
Okay. Thank you so much for really a fascinating panel. Each of the presentations had so much to tell us. I have a question to Kai. The first one is, first of all, all this future enterprise of digitizing the whole is really to be commended. It's quite an enterprise to be completed. My question is about the impact of the judicial system in Germany on the collection of the testimonies, on the attitude to testimonies. Some of them were presented in court. As we know, there was no other Germany until the 70s, until there was really a new generation that took positions. We had in Israel, in Tel Aviv here, the honor of launching the Rosenbrook papers, which were brought here by the then Minister of Justice. He was later Foreign Minister, and the authors or the editors, and they emphasized how much or to what an extent the judicial system in Germany was actually the former one or meant by the former as any other minister. How was that? How was the impact? Also, I don't know whether others would share my feeling towards the word Wiedergutmachung. I don't know who invented this word. מה אתה אומר, רוני? Who invented this word? What does it actually mean? Wiedergut, what good was there before that should be now, that should now come again? Which good? It's a word that is really, I don't know, it scratches you. It's not your fault, it's not your personal fault, but it is there as a question whenever we use it. One short question to Daniel, and this is, that was really interesting, the way the British took care, or their major thought was their economic profits, yes or no. What was the weight, the economic weight of a country like Israel, which had in the end of 1951, 1.2 million citizens, that's all. What was the economic weight that should have been taken in such a consideration? And wasn't that part of the notion that Jews have a financial and economic weight that is not really the realistic? It doesn't go hand in hand with reality. There is a series now going on, it is called The Mandate, and it renewed anti-British feelings in Israel right now. So what exactly were they hoping for or wishing, expecting of an Israel that they left in shambles?
Thank you. My suggestion would be that we collect the questions. Otherwise, I will be blamed to have the same punctuality like the German Deutsche Bahn. So the next question is here. We can take a bit extra, okay. Like the Deutsche Bahn does always.
I have three questions actually for Kai. or requests. At this moment in time, basically the volume of restitution of property, Jewish property in Germany, done by the lender is unknown. That I was told that at the conference in Prague by a senior official of the Ministry of Finance, the German Ministry of Finance. So my question, or my request, or my hope would be, would you deal with this as well? And could you deal with this as a priority? Is it possible, Kai? Question number 2, German Jews were compelled by the Nazis to report all their property on special forms at one time. Unfortunately, all those forms, which are of great importance to the descendants of those people, are still buried in the German archives, and they are not released for various reasons of keeping private information by the German tax authorities as essential. So could or would you deal with this as well, and could you make it as a priority? The last question is by the same senior official of the German Ministry of Finance. I was told then that basically the reparations agreement was a German government subsidy to the German industry. That's all, except of the 150 million which went to Britain to purchase oil. All the rest was German government subsidy to the German industry. And basically no money was given to Israel, but the German goods. I would like to add that at that time, German goods were not popular worldwide, and the fact that the Jews purchased them or took them basically enabled the German industry to start selling, exporting German goods again.
Please.
So what do you think about this remark of your ministry's official?
Maybe the answer is no comment. So who was next here? Guido? I think you have been next in line. I'm coming over, so it's going from here to there.
So, thank you for really excellent presentation. Since all the questions before were directed to Kai, I will ask you after the presentation and ask the other 3. So first to Lorena, I probably missed it in your presentation, but I didn't really understand why eventually they agreed to host the talks. And since so many security measures were involved, actually who paid for that? For Daniel, I actually would like to connect to what was said before about, because you said that there was some protest about economic disadvantage or economic advantage that basically the agreement entailed for Germany, but actually it also entailed an economic disadvantage for Germany in the Arab world, which at least from what I know, that was one of the reasons why the French eventually supported the agreement with between Germany and Israel. So I'm a bit surprised as well that actually for the British, they didn't go along this line. And finally, for Irit, really thank you for this kind of adding this kind of emotional aspects to that. But actually my question is about the name of the delegation. If you can elaborate on that, because this name, purchasing delegation, Mishlachat Kniyot, seems very awkward.
Thank you. So, who was next? And also Konstantin Dorschler is on the list.
Good morning. I'd like to put two questions to Kai. Since you represent the Ministry of Finance, and maybe this is not exactly your duty, I would like to know, at the time, there was a committee of historians that had been appointed by the ministry to try to assess the value of the Jewish properties that had been seized by the German government, not only in Germany, but all over. There was a first report some 10 years ago, and then there was supposed to be a follow-up on that work because that report was not final. So my question to you is, do you know or can you find out anything about if the work of that committee of historians has been completed? My second question is a little bit legal, and the question is on your project of digitation. What is the legal aspect of opening up personal documents to the general public? Are we allowed to do so? I know that in Israel this is not the case. And then I have a question to Irit. How come you chose Dr. Shin'ar? Are you aware, or did you also find documents that he was also somehow involved in political contacts, not only in financial and personal, but also slowly but surely he continued to also, or he put the basis of political contacts? Thank you.
I think the last question is a very important one. So are there other questions? The first one is also important, of course. So here, our host also has the right, of course.
Well, so it's not really a question, but it's more a remark. I want to try to connect the lectures of Lorena and Daniel.
Yeah.
And to say and to ask, you showed us a very interesting document about the perception of the British on the declaration of Konrad Adenauer, and that they said that, well, the Germans are not taking responsibility, and we spoke yesterday about im Namen des deutschen Volkes and the same point. And the question is why the projection of the British didn't project the special relations. What didn't they understand about the relations between the Israel and the special relations? Well, I think that they didn't understand maybe why is it so important for the Germans. Because for them, I think one should ask what is the importance of moral obligation, or what the role of moral obligation in international relationship. It is a very interesting question for us. And I think that they didn't understand that why is it so important for the Germans, I mean, entering to the international arena, that the relationship with Israel is so important for them, trying to be again part of the, let's say, the Western world, or to have a leading role in the Western world. And so this is, I think, something that they didn't understand. And that brings me also to Lorena, which she just mentioned briefly, but this is very important. The impact of the Cold War on the relations between Israel and Germany. And all the policy of West Germany towards Israel from the very beginning until 1965 was under the influence of the Cold War. And one should understand the delicate situation of West Germany during the 50s. Always in a situation which he is afraid that they are going to change a West German situation, that the West will eventually give up to the East, and they will change the situation of Germany, and especially the city of Berlin. And for that, they were looking all the time for the support of the public opinion worldwide, especially in the West. And for that, they overestimated the power of the Jews in the United States and their influence on the government. And it was, you can see, and Jelinek was the first who mentioned it, that whenever Adenauer went to the United States, first he made a speech about the good relations with the Jews, and what he did for the Jews and what he did for Israel. So one should take this in consideration. This is something that the British couldn't predict. I think that most of the Israelis couldn't predict it at that time. And to understand how much the relations with Israel is important to the Germans. And I just can say from my study, which is about the relationship between Israel and Germany during the 50s and the beginning of the 60s, that what the Germans did for these relations is unbelievable, The compensation was only, the Luxembourg Agreement was only the beginning. Giving so much money to Israel and weapon without taking money from Israel is really unbelievable. And they were really ready to invest a lot in this relation. And now to read just one comment about Shen'ar, one that you can find in the correspondence, maybe towards the end of the 50s, or the beginning of the 60s, that there is a growing mistrust of the Israeli foreign office in Shen'ar. And that all the time they repeat that Shen'ar, and there is Fischer in his special mission to Germany in 58, he wrote that one can't distinguish between Shen'ar and the other Germans, that he looked like the Germans and he behaved like the Germans and he understands the Germans. And they began to not to relate to his report as a genuine report. That's it.
Yeah, maybe that's the reason why we had the term wishful thinking, why the wish of the Germans that Felix Schindler would be the first ambassador didn't come to reality.
Just one very interesting note. Immediately after the Eichmann trial in 1962,
yeah,
he sent a letter to Israel in which he suggested to plant, to plant, yes, 2,000 trees for Erhard.
Yeah.
And they said, well, he's totally Michigany.
Yeah.
I mean, immediately after the Eichmann trial, to send such a suggestion to Israel?
Yeah. So normally I would say no questions anymore, but Karen, I can't resist. Okay. So now it's on your side to answer all these questions. They could go on for another hour, I think, but I have to force you to be very short. And so we start with Professor Siemens.
Yeah, was just about the microphone. I didn't necessarily want to stop, but if I can.
Be as brief as you...
Yeah, I try. I mean, the situation is really much more complex than I presented them, so I can probably not provide a comprehensive answer, but there are some points in my answer that I think should be mentioned. First of all, Britain, as you know, it has basically costs also in West Germany running the British zone of occupation. So to some extent, they have to balance out, they're committed, or they have costs regarding to Israel and maybe market chances, but they also have costs in Germany. In other words, to basically punish West German industry too harshly would occur other costs that they probably factor in. And then there's something with every kind of continental European living in the United Kingdom these days, we constantly talk about Brexit, so this is a wound that is not healing yet. And what all Europeans, or majority of Europeans observe is that the British haven't bought into this European project very much. And this, I think, maybe this is a wrong analogy, but I would say we shouldn't forget that the United Kingdom in the early 1950s is still considering itself as a global power. And Europe is just one area of their interest. And now I come to the role of Israel. You're right, Israel is economically not really important to them, and probably their relationship with Egypt and the Suez Canal and all these kind of things matter them equally well. But on the other hand, politically, it is, it shouldn't fail. Also because it has taken in all these Jewish refugees from Europe. So if you just imagine Israel would, as a state project, would fail, the question of refugees would come up again. And I think this is something that didn't come up in the files, but it's, of course, for the politician, plays a role. So Israel has to succeed, because otherwise the Jewish refugee problem is up there again. And last point last point I wanted to make was about global public, and I cut this out in my paper. So not only did the Arabs when their boycott threats came up, there was attempts to, on the one hand, kind of pro-Israel faction try to publicize, and there were newspaper articles, for example, in the Springer Press, which is known for kind of pro-Israel position, that the Egyptians would be advised by former Nazis, military advisors that were kind of behind the boycott threats, so to delegitimize their position. And the West German government also actually reached out to the United States and said, the Arabs are boycotting us. If they do this in earnest, so to say, we need money from you because we are, to a certain extent, fulfilling what you want from us, dealing with Israel. So there is also this side of kind of global, which is very, very complex. And I think probably need more time to speak about, but thanks for all these good questions.
Well, thank you very much. In terms of the question of, but why would the Netherlands decide to host? I would highlight 3 points in particular. The first one is the relevance of the meeting, which was understood to a certain extent. There is also, so you mentioned who was paying these security measures and similar. So this was really all the police work, and it's the Dutch authorities. So that's where this was coming from. Another important point, though. So first part, relevance of the meeting. The second that I want to mention here is the important work of the then Israeli representative, first to the Benelux countries and then to the Netherlands, Michael Amir. So it was thanks to his diplomatic contacts that eventually, and also because he was one of the first, he called himself a heretic within the Israeli foreign ministry. He was one of the first within the foreign ministry to understand the potential importance both of negotiating and negotiating directly. So also you understand this double play of delegations to Brussels, but actually going to the Netherlands. That's also where it comes from. But third, and there you actually are onto something, because it is true that to the Dutch, also the payment for the rental of the castle made a difference, because it was going to happen for 1 whole month. And now we know it took like a lot more, and so on and so forth. So that was something. Professor Stauber, thank you very much also for highlighting the importance of the Cold War as a phase, but also as a way of understanding foreign relations, but also the self-understanding of these states. So West Germany also created artificially, like the East one, and then needing to define itself within these global tensions that I tried to sketch. So I could go on forever, but I just want to make a reference also to one of the documents we saw in Daniel's presentation, which I think is another interesting element of understanding the Cold War by analyzing this kind of evidence, which is that we see the dynamics of alliances, of course, very important to the Cold War, Western alliance, but also the competition among the so-called allies, so within the West itself. Exactly. And in the Middle East, and within the Eastern Bloc. But without further ado, I will give the word to Kai, who has a lot to answer for.
I feel that too, yeah. Thank you very much, and thank you for the questions. And I have to ask you for your understanding if I try to make it rarely brief, but we can talk afterwards. But
You have to make it brief.
yes, because I was a little bit over the time, yeah, no?
Yeah.
Okay, no. For the question of the impact of the people working in the authorities and the well, for sure. I tend to say in Germany, the people after the unconditional surrender of May 8th, they didn't wake up on 9 May and looked around and said, oh, these 12 years were terrible, but this was a kind of an evolution. So this is a problem. Everyone who worked with these files, Professor Brunner, Professor Goschler, everybody, know there are some remarkable remarks in these files. Adenauer was looking to the military. He was asked in 1955 after Germany joined the NATO. He was asked if Hitler's generals are going to be Adenauer's generals as well. And he said, I understand that question, but I fear the NATO won't take generals from Germany under the age of 18. So Germany had to deal with a situation that the same people, more or less, were in position to take on this task as well. And this had a good side, I think, too, because they had to deal over the years. They had to deal with everything that was in the applications, and they had to deal with the testimonies. And though this somehow was, well, just for German society, thousands of German official workers had to deal with it. But of course, there was this past of them. And for the second question, Wiedergutmachung, well, that's a tough one, of course. I can say we had an exhibition in the German parliament, as was mentioned yesterday, and we did it with the claims conference in cooperation, and we had some, don't misunderstand me, some with Dr. Hoppe and Professor Blumenfeld, we had some serious fun. It was really a task to deal with this wording. Well, it wasn't invented for dealing with National Socialist injustice. For it's a very old German word. You can find it, Professor Goschler, you described it in your excellent work on the history of Wiedergutmachung. You can find it several hundred years ago in encyclopedias on the German language, and it has the meaning of to pay, to restitute, and to atone. For the future, the problem is the word is in the world, and we cannot just erase it. But it's a collective term, so it's not just compensation. In the English language, you use compensation, restitution, reparation. We don't use as German government reparation, because reparation in Germany, Reparationen, this is on the interstate level, so we don't use this because this is about individual compensation, and compensation is a material term, and restitution kind of as well. But there are more aspects to the whole complex of Wiedergutmachung, as is for the future. But the word is a very tough one, and our minister said when we had this commemoration on September 15th in Berlin, he said it's you cannot make good again, as I said, but it's the motive of action. It's the motive to act. And well, we're working on this, but we have to work with the word as well.
Kai, may I just interrupt you for 1 second, because Professor Goschler just wanted to say one word.
Just a short add-on. So there's a general assumption that Wiedergutmachung is a kind of bureaucratic euphemism. But this is very old legal thinking. If you take the Versailles Peace Treaty, And it is written in 3 languages. It's in English, in French, and in German. And in English and French, you will find reparations or Reparation, and in German you will find Wiedergutmachung. So that's a tradition of international law. And so we always wonder, well, what an odd word, and is it possible to make good again? So this is misleading. And so this is a huge misunderstanding in a way.
Thank you. Now we have to stick a little bit to the time. Yeah.
About the word shilumim.
Yeah.
Dina yesterday mentioned the origin of the shilumim and what the Sharet and her father meant. But many of the Israelis thought that shilumim is to pay. And the Alterman wrote against this word. He said, Alterman wrote that it was a real mistake to choose this word. So there was also a misunderstanding about what they meant and what other people understand from this word. I think that it wasn't a good word, shilumim.
So, thank you. Now we have to rush.
Just to round it up, and I think that's the very important thing, even with the word Wiedergutmachung, as I described, we are working on that together with the claims conference, for example, in our cooperative work. But that doesn't hinder us from working on the things that are actual possible. So the work for the survivors and the work for the future. So the third and the fourth and the fifth question, I think I tried to get them all together. Would be very comfortable to say no comment. Let me say you this: we try really. I said it's going to be a comprehensive approach, a holistic approach. So we try in the end, and these are going to be decades because this is mass material. In the end, we want to have everything. And it should be everything, but it's. I have some kind of a schizophrenic task here because I come to you and I say we are going to build up this, or we have built up this the theme portal and we are working on it. But at the same time, I have to say it's going to take some years and decades. So I cannot say what we're going to prioritize because everybody wants us to prioritize everything. And we have to deal with our partners because we as the finance ministry, we don't do it on ourselves because we cannot do it. We have to stick to the Bundesarchiv, Federal Archives and some other partners, the FIZ Karlsruhe, it's a Leibniz Institute and the State Archive of Baden-Württemberg for the infrastructure. And then afterwards, we have to go to the archives and every institution and every other place that's in possession of these very important material to make arrangements to support them in digitizing and cataloging. So it's going to take some while. I don't really like the term "buried in the archives" because you can go to the archives and lift it up. But of course, the archives, not only in Germany, they have to stick to the rules, and they have blocking periods, and we have to stick to these blocking periods as well. But as I mentioned, this is going to take decades. So this is a problem that's going to solve itself, more or less.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to hurry up a little bit. The benefits for the German, the benefits for the German economy. Well, I think this is very well known. So this is not new, but we tend to look and evaluate all of this in retrospect. The Luxembourg Agreement wasn't signed because of the German economy. There were other reasons why, and I think we're talking about all of this. If this is one of the outcome, it is, I think. I don't know if it's good or bad. Of course, it was good for German economy, as it was for Israel economy, luckily. The very important question of you, Mrs. Avital, the legal aspects. If we are opening every everything personal, and these are very personal materials and information. And this is an excellent question, because this is one of the challenges we really have to deal with very sensitively, and we are doing this. So as I said before, nothing will be just put on the internet. But we're going to have a virtual reading room, and even with this, we're going to have regulations. But my hope is that with the help of technology, we can extract this very important information without violating personal information and without putting the fate and the suffer of all these people just to the internet for everybody to exploit. But we want to make it searchable and to be used, because we want it to be used. This is very important, but in a very safe manner. We hope we can do that, and we are going. Of course, otherwise we couldn't manage it.
We really have to finish now.
And for the last question, this is good. I don't know exactly, but I'm going to inform myself, and then we will speak again.
Okay, that's very good. So now all the burden is on your shoulders, Irit. You are the last one bridging the barrier between us and the lunch.
Okay,
so please,
for the sake of time and the sake of lunch, I will try to be brief and concise. And what I'll do is, I will try to connect the two questions about the mission's name and the political involvement of the mission, and especially Shenar's. And I will say that the mission's name was one of the main principal questions that were discussed in the Foreign Ministry of Israel before the launch of the mission. Other questions were, for example, regarding the place of its residence, why Cologne, but I will not answer it now for the sake of lunch. Regarding the name, then there were some options. One of the options, for example, was compensation mission. But then there was a question, how will it be perceived by the Germans? How will it look like? And what does it also mean that the relations will only be regarding the compensation and regarding, it kept no room for other parts of relations that could grow over the years, and it was a question whether Israel was ready for that or not. And so also so the purchasing mission was kind of a more neutral name for the task. For what the mission was supposed to do there. And of course, there was also another name. There was the Israel mission name. And then it was, it kind of had another focus or another task that the mission took upon itself, which wasn't only purchasing the goods and dealing with the compensation and the reparations, but also all other aspects of relations between the two countries. And then here I can say that yes, the Shen'ar and the mission, of course, we were also involved in other aspects and other kind of relations that started to develop between Germany and Israel in those years. And Shen'ar was already from the beginning of the mission in Cologne spoke about the need and necessity of conducting relations with the Germans. He kept on saying that he also received these comments from German officials that he met, and he said, we can't continue with this mission of purchasing goods without realizing and hearing what they have to say. So he was definitely involved, and he was probably also involved because there were not, during the years, it's 12 years of mission, there were only, as far as I know, 3 political advisors in the mission. Chaim Yechiel at the beginning until 54, and then only in 59 Yochanan Meroz, and then Leo Savir, who at the beginning of the 60s. So it was also Shen'ar's task that he took upon himself to. In the one, there were domestic conflicts inside the mission. I'll stop here.
Yeah. Thank you so much to all the participants here in the panel. If you thought this was an especially interesting panel, tell it to others. If you don't think so, don't. So thank you so very much. And to me, being a father of 3 and the husband of a very strong wife, I know that I never have the last word, and that also applies here. So the last word goes to Sarah to tell us where we have to go to.